Okay, so in this lesson we're going to be looking at what I describe as a post-metal sort of sound, and it's kind of my favorite type of thing to do. It's very mellow. It does move around a lot, so it's kind of a few different things you're going to have to get to grips with before you can really get into it. So what we'll do first is take a bit of a look at the riff, and there's two parts to it. So in the first part we'll have, well, I just call it the riff, but it's essentially just kind of the noodling bit where I just sort of go around a basic progression. And the second part of it, we're using some thirds. So what we might do is start with just what the basic progression is. So if you want to look at it in purely simple terms, you could do a open G chord. And I am in C standard, but I'm going to refer to everything as if we're in standard, just in case you want to play it in another tuning. But also it's just easier to create that standard across all tunings. So we get the G, and then we could play like an A, and then back to an E. So kind of almost like an AC/DC type of thing. And all of those are basically open power chords. G, A, E. And there's a bass line included also, which will emphasize that, that progression as well. So as far as the guitar goes, it's emphasizing that bass line quite a bit because we're spending a lot of time on it. So when we start, we're going to play that note. We've got a couple of open strings, and then we're going to move over across from the 3rd to the 5th to the 7th fret. And then we're returning back to the root note of E. So as you can hear there, it flows very nicely, and that's what I like most about it. And at the end of every second bar, I'm just going to do like a little pentatonic fill. So to begin with in the second bar fill, and it's actually pretty similar each time, the second bar fill will be played as in something like this. Notice that there's a hammer-on technique there, and I like to use my middle finger for that. And essentially the first bit is our hook. The second part is our fill. Notice on the second time we change it, so we play the 2nd and the 3rd string after the hammer-on. First time. Second time. And in the 3rd run through, we're going to start off with our hook again. And then the same fill as we did the first time. And then we're going to play our hook again. But this time we're going to come in a little bit later, and we're also going to double the speed of the hammer-on. So we're playing the open D to the 2nd fret on the D string at double the speed. And then we're playing the 2nd and the 1st string. So this is actually the first half of the whole thing. So what I'm going to do now is play this, and you can have a play along with it. Now remember that in Sound Slice, if there's any bit that you're struggling with, you can actually loop whatever bar you want, and even within the bar. So you can do that. You can also speed up and slow down. So if I'm too slow, you can speed up, and if I'm too fast, you can slow down. So check out the controls below the video and next to the tablature, so you can do that. So let's come in and try it out. I'm going to do a basic count. That'll help me to sync things up in Sound Slice, and then we'll try out the part. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember that you can loop all that. That's why I didn't play it through more than once. So you can, all those bars that you see in the tablature, you can actually just left click drag and you can loop that, so they'll just keep repeating. You can also use a metronome, by the way, which is helpful sometimes. So moving on to the second half of section A, we're going to be using what's called thirds. And what thirds are is just where we use a root note and then we use 2 scale tones up from it from that point. So in the key that we're in, which is E minor, if we've got a C note, our third would be E. So we have a C and an E note. And so what I'm doing is I'm descending back through the scale from C, B, G, A, sorry. And then do we go to G? No, we go straight to E. But the bass line you'll actually hear will do a G note. So it's kind of like... But the guitar's just going to do this. And then it's going to play the fill. And then it will repeat that. And then a different fill. So this becomes our hook for this part, the third sequence. Then the last time through, it's going to be a little bit different because we're going to slide into the E power chord at the 7th fret. So we'll do this. And that's, as you can see there, at the 7th fret, 7th position. And then we're going to do like a little pentatonic fill here. I like to keep my finger position down the whole time. And that just finishes off that section. So let's have a playthrough of that section. And again, if you want to loop that, my playthrough that's coming, you can just left click and drag to do that. After 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it for section A. Okay, so now we move on to the thirds. And in the thirds, we're going to be using a lot more thirds actually. So that previous part was kind of like a warm up to it. And also it was in a lower register because the thirds were down the 6th and the 5th string. In this bit, we're going to be using them on the 4th and the 3rd string. In fact, I don't think that changes. No, it's all on the same set of strings. So what we might do to start with is just take a look at all the thirds in the scale, just as a warm up. And we'll play them from down here all the way up to where we're going to finish up in the part. So if we start out with the E and the G note, and these are all on the 4th and 3rd string. Then we have F sharp and A. Then we have G and B. Then we have A and C. And we've got B and D. C and E. Same shape, 2 frets higher. That's going to be D and F sharp. Then we have the E and the G note again. So that's our octave from where we started. And we also actually use the octave of F sharp and A. So that'll be at the 16th and 14th fret before finishing back at E and G. So that's our thirds covered. And we're going to be using most of those. In fact, I think all of them. So we get to use the whole spectrum of those going all the way up and mixing them up a bit. So our first section, we start on the G and the B note. And you'll notice the rhythm in this is repeating itself basically. So I think every 2 bars, I'll just have a quick look. Yep, every 2 bars is the same rhythm. So once you've got that rhythm, you don't need to remember any other rhythms then. It's the same thing. So we've got G and B. Moving up to the A and C, and back to the E and the G. And then we're going to start again from G and B. But this time we're going to mix it a bit, so we're going to play the B and the D. And And then the A and the C. And then what do we got next? The E and the G again. Now, a point about that is that that's what's known as resolving. So when we're returning to that E and G, we're basically returning to the E minor chord. It's a very small E minor. But we've got our two main notes, the E and the G. So just something to think about there as you're playing through it. Moving on, starting off with our G and B again. Then it's A and C, G and B, E and G. A little bit different the next time, I think. G and B, F sharp and A, back to G and B, E and G. And then we've got the A and C, G and B, F sharp and A, G and B, and E and G. And then we're going to move up. So we're going to use the C and the E, B and D, A and C, back to B and D, E and G. And we're almost there. So we've got A and C, G and B, A and C again, G and B again, E and G. And then we're going to finish with an ascending sequence. So we're going to go all the way from the thirds on the C and the E note, and we're just going to move up in order of the shapes. And that completes the sequence. So I'm going to play through this now. I'll do the 4 count, and then you can come in with me. And remember, if at any point you want to loop any part of it, you can do that in the player. 1, 2, 3, 4. And thus concludes this lesson for today. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for supporting me, and I'll see you soon for the next lesson. So until then, bye for now.